we are to use the street spacing as part of our parking lot. I think that covers it. Is there anything else?
No, I don't know. Sorry if I addressed the group. I'm the owner of 4201 Tulane, along with my wife Catherine. And we haven't offered the building for lease, hoping that we could get this situated, because I think it would be better for both our investment in the neighborhood, but also for the neighborhood, because it would have the benefit of cleaning up the space and kind of creating an economic incentive for us to maintain the space for tenants, as opposed to the situation it is in right now. So we're sort of pending marketing the property in the hopes of having a parking area.
Okay, does that conclude the presentation?
I think so.
Do y'all want to go over, like, specifically the site circulation, how you would leave the parking lot and enter into the mixed-use building? Is there any lighting shown? You talked about the landscaping, the selection of the fencing, and those types of details.
So the parking circulation is off of Tulane Avenue, which between the building and the overpass is a one-way street. So you're coming down that one-way street and either turning into the smaller 7-space parking lot to the right, or continuing on and turning into the 31-space parking lot. Both of those parking lots continue the one-way circulation back onto Tulane.
Nicole, can you follow up? Is there a site plan showing some
Yes,
of this?
those are the.
I think it's important to note that when you say Tulane Avenue, it is really the termination of Tulane Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, you enter kind of upper right corner right there, and travel down Tulane Avenue, and either U-turn to get back onto the main thoroughfare of Tulane, and the two parking lots off of that are one way as well. And then I can talk a bit more about the fencing. So the street-facing fencing is proposed to be a 6-foot steel fence. If you kind of go down on that page, yeah, there's an image of what we're proposing on the bottom left. There's a similar looking fence along the train track at that diagonal line. So that would be along the street-facing sides. And then on the interior lot side, kind of planned south of that 31-space parking lot, is a 10-foot chain link fence with a privacy screen. And that's really to kind of obscure the view into this car repair lot that's to the south of the proposed development. It's full of tires and old clunky cars. It's not really something you want to see in those residences across the street from the larger parking lot area. Yeah, those are some images of the existing condition of it.
Were there any concerns that the not being able to see through that tall fence separating from the parking tire area, that would create opportunities for crime into the parking lot because you can't quite see through?
I'm going to comment on that briefly. My name's Claire Dury. I'm their attorney. The back side of that fence, go to the one that had the colored squares.
Claire knows the space very well.
I think it's in the middle on that bar.
Yeah, one page up.
One page up. Yeah. Okay, so the red square there, or triangle, whatever shape that is, that's city owned. The square below it, that's a different shaped triangle, that one is city owned with a DOTD servitude. And then when you see that cross-hatched area, that is DOTD fee property. Gerber Collision currently occupies that, and they have it fully fenced all the way around the street to Carrollton. So they've had a significant problem with break-ins, people camping in cars. So they have a high fence all around the property. So there is no concern about access from that back section. They currently have it fenced into that red area, that city property, and they're removing that, well, they're backing the fence up, and once we're ready, assuming we get the approvals needed, we will then take that down and have it open. But they're gonna make sure that that area is fully secure, because of the nature of the problems they've had under there. But that curve all the way around, all the way to Carrollton, is fully fenced, and that area will be closed off. And the goal was to make sure that both sides are secure, and we have worked with them and met them out on site a number of times, and worked with the DOT. We will have a consent to the areas under the, and no objection from them, that the areas that are under the on-ramp. So we're also working in conjunction with them.
Okay, thanks, that's good to know. Just in general, transparency into and out of the site increases safety. So. But I appreciate the changes that y'all made, the additional landscaping, the fencing. Have you spoken about lighting yet?
No, so we are proposing 5 parking lot poles, 3 at the larger parking area and 2 at the smaller. And the height of these will be lower than the overpass itself. So ranging in height from like 8 feet to 12 feet. And the idea behind using parking lot poles instead of surface mounted fixtures is we don't really want to touch the overpass or any of the support structures, and we don't want to cause an issue with DOTD, so these are independent of that structure.
So that the lighting at that 8 to 12 feet eliminate like a face level so you can identify people as you walk by?
That's the idea is to provide lighting to cover the entire parking area. I don't have my lighting calculations back from the engineer yet, but we are also proposing to use a shield on the back side of these fixtures so it's not illuminating any of those residences to the north. That's the plan.
Okay, just a comment for safety. You do want to make sure that you have lighting at the face level so that as you're walking through, you can identify people walking next to you. So you want to consider all details of lighting. But yeah, are there any other comments?
In terms of the parking lot design, it doesn't seem to meet zoning requirements for drive aisle widths.
So the parking lot to the left is a 45-degree scheme with the required 13-foot drive aisle. And the parking lot to the right is a 75-degree scheme with 20-foot drive aisle. It looks very small on this plan.
You just need 13 feet to 45 degree.
Per the CVO.
Yeah. Well, then you're all right. Let's see. And then this, so you have an existing, and you have a proposed development. I notice you have some crosswalks. I'm DPW, so we do crosswalks. So you'd be proposing to establish these crosswalks, new crosswalks here to the building.
Correct.
You know that every crosswalk we have to restrict parking 20 feet before and after that crosswalk. So you can't just put it between 2 parking spaces.
The further to the left crosswalk probably would hit the curving where there's probably a curb cut there. I'm pretty sure there is because it's a door, like a warehouse door there. So I don't think that you could park there currently. I don't know about the other space, but it was originally a cabinet company where they're bringing wood in and cabinets, wood in and cabinets out. So of course with the tax credits we were obliged to keep the building just as it appeared in 1924.
Take that money, you know. Yeah, well, I mean, that's, I guess my comment stands. So basically, the parking starts 20 feet after the radius, so not from the cross street's curb line, but from basically from the end of that radius, more or less. So that on street parking isn't quite the way it looks, at least with crosswalks. You have to have crosswalks for basically those crosswalks won't work. The on-street parking will probably have to be almost removed. Yeah, go ahead.
Just, maybe I'm not looking at the plan properly. Could you bring, instead of the crosswalk coming straight over to where the parking is, have it come over from the corner and across? Is that still part of the lot? And then up
You're talking about the middle crosswalk?
the middle, well,
Of the 3 crosswalks that.
yes, the middle crosswalk.
Yeah, the idea behind that is, if you see that like kind of arrow indicator on the building, that is the main entrance to the building.
Sure.
Thinking about how people will enter into the building.
This is
I mean, I understand it. I just was trying to come up with a solution, but I'll leave it to you guys.
Is what she's talking about.
Yeah.
I think she's talking about the here, but that's not our property.
No, I was talking about the other side. So
Oh.
don't worry about
Oh,
it.
this
It's,
one.
yeah.
That's interesting.
You know, and just bring them up the side.
Go back.
There's a,
You know, I was just saying she wants us to go backwards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not saying I wanted to. I'm just offering.
Oh, it's a good idea.
Yeah, it is a good
It
idea.
helps them with our-
Instead of the middle of the street,
Yeah,
more
no.
visible.
Well, you know, pluses and minuses on both sides. Just a suggestion.
Is there a landscaping sheet? Did we look at that?
There is a landscaping sheet. If you go down. Yeah, that was there's up again. This is the smaller parking lot. The issue with this parking lot is it is completely under the overpass, so there's concern about anything growing. So our landscape architect, who is Johanna Leiby, she proposed doing a gravel surface. And if you go up one sheet, this is the larger parking lot with street trees and plantings along the perimeter of the parking lot. Also in the bottom right corner, there's some gravel surface where the overpass is completely concealing the space.
Okay, I don't have any comments on that. I think I will make a motion for approval, subject to considering, realigning the crosswalk. That's just a consideration that you can look into further, but, I have no other comments, so.
We want to get the lighting right.
Mhm.
I want to make sure, I agree with you on that. We want to make sure it's very safe.
Hey, I had a quick question. With this kind of bisecting multiple zoning districts, have we determined how we're going to compute, I guess, like permeability and stuff like that? We can
We
dive
can
deeper
look
into it, but
that, for that, and also there's just a question that was on the table about number of parking spaces, so y'all have to work into that further, but those are things we can.
We
So
also have there's that zoning rule about the max widths of one-way driveways,
okay,
12 feet.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe as part of the motion, we can clarify that this is sort of a high-level review, and that the actual zoning requirements are gonna be administered by safety and permits, as part of the zoning review. I will say y'all have clearly done your homework, and there's lots of notations, and these plans are so much better on the zoning stuff than 99% of the plans we see where it's clear no one's even cracked the ordinance. So I do wanna thank you for the attentiveness to the zoning requirements, it makes everyone's job easier. But the sort of fine grain is the curb cut width requirement met, is the parking stall depth requirement met, will be handled at the time of zoning by safety permits.
And DPW, I mean, it's gonna have to go through our engineers, just to determine whether we can allow I guess this is a lease, whether we can allow the use and stuff that close to the curb line. You coordinate. I know y'all did a survey, but sometimes I don't like people getting that close to the street and the curb line from like a utility sense, or just being able to do road construction, that sort of thing. So anyway, just letting you know that'll go through that too.
Just wanted to clarify what's needed. DPW looked at this at the encroachment work group meeting, as well as Sewage and Water Board. Sewage and Water Board's requested a survey. DPW approved it at the encroachment work group level. The only thing additional, we did submit the change site plan. Originally we were looking at a larger site, including some of the DOTD property. We did submit this site plan to the for EWG at the last, I think it was in March, and it was reviewed at that time. So just wanted to clarify what additional we need to do through DPW so we can be sure to address that.
The EWG.
Encroachment working group.
Yeah, but I'm on that.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing it.
I don't remember seeing it, but that's.
There was one last year with a larger site plan, and there was one in March with the smaller site plan. And I have the additional comments. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
It's odd for both of us to be gone at the same time. And I don't remember it, but that's okay.
I don't remember being gone. I don't remember it.
So do you want to make just an amendment?
I can't imagine anyone else would have been there if I would.
Do they need to be stamped or approved? We can just say with a proviso that final DPW.
It's fine, just further review.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, so for approval, subject to the discussed modifications, including further review by DPW. As we mentioned, the crosswalk realignment, lighting changes, and looking into the exact number of parking spaces that are allowed and other zoning requirements. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by city planning. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
So I'm just going to give a brief overview and say that it's for the office building. And the reason we're looking at it is because of this. Talk about the location. We'll give, usually we would just say something briefly from our friend. That's okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't return the favor of that.
The next item is item number 5, design review 2323.
Yeah.
This is a request for a new office building on a site with over 100 feet of frontage in a CT corridor transformation overlay district. Ava Monet is the CTC staff member assigned to this case, and we have Brian Anderson here to speak. So Brian, if you can just give us a general overview of the project, including your design considerations. You have 10 minutes to present.
Sure, thank you for having us. So my client purchased this property a little bit over a year and a half ago. It's almost 4.5 acres of actual land. The intended user is going to be a medical clinic that's going to go there, Urgent Care 11. We're already in multiple spots throughout the city. So we actually contracted, David Dempsey's here today with Workshop WXL to help us with looking at this building as well as an overall scheme of the site. So it's not present on these drawings because we're focusing now on that building in the center. But our intention at the moment is to construct a 6,000 square foot medical office building. My client will most likely occupy half of the property, and the other 3,000 square feet, we're looking at other medical adjacent tenants, dentist office, eye doctors, of that nature. What you're looking at in the center there is our phase 1, we're calling it, which is the initial build out of that building. In the bottom left-hand corner, there's an existing restaurant that's on the site that we're not anticipating touching at the moment. Very good soul food restaurant, actually, so they're going to stay for a while, hopefully. And our general plan is to design the building in a manner so that it's aesthetically pleasing, but also works within the environment we're out there with the other buildings that are around us. We do have, like I said, future plans for additional parking on the site, but at this moment, this is phase one. We believe that we've reached all the guidelines we need to for the site as a whole.
Okay, thank you. And David, did you have anything to add? No. Okay. Well, I will just briefly read Miguel Viteri with Capital Projects. He had a few comments. He's not able to come at this time, but he said the building should have its main entrance oriented towards Chef Mentor. Could the clinic swap spaces to the north end of the building, and its facade reoriented to the north end of the building? So those are Miguel's comments.
Would you like me to respond?
Sure.
So, being that it's such a large site, one of the interesting issues that we're facing is the height of Chef Mentor Highway compared to the rest of the site. When we purchased the land, they had already brought in 2 or 3 feet of fill across the site. I think during Katrina there was a prospect. And the site, the road still sits a good 5 to 6 feet above where we are. So when we originally looked at this design scheme, and I apologize, I could probably get more drawings to you of the development. We're actually looking at this as a campus development with our future design. So when we initially looked at the design, our intent was to bring people onto the site off the Chef, because obviously that's what we're adjacent to. But we're looking at a more internal focus because of the buildings that will be going around the property, and because of the fact that even with us raising the site and bringing people to the building, Chef is still so much higher than we are, and it's not pedestrian friendly in any way, shape, or form. So as you actually see there, we've got some plans in the workings right now to be able to bring pedestrians onto the site safely, unlike most of the properties out there where people are walking along the clearance on the road. Because the way Chef is built, it's basically the road, the service side of the road, and then there's a huge ditch that's built up there. So our intentions when we built this was to purposely bring people into that parking lot and then expand them out across the campus from there.
And that sidewalk shown there does not exist. That's a concept that we would like to find a way to do, but currently there's no pedestrian access.
We're also exploring the options of trying to work with the RTA to see if there's a way for us to get a bus stop onto the site, so that we can bring people onto the site. And our belief was, being that we have such a large site that we can work with, if we have this master plan, that getting people safely onto the site and then dispersing them from there made more sense than trying to, I guess, interact with Chef as you would Magazine Street or St. Charles. It just doesn't have that same dynamic.
Can we go through the drawings? Yep, so there are 46 pages. Can you kind of point Nicole to where like the site plan would be and the elevations with sheet numbers?
So the site plan would be a couple of more drawings in. So that's the first floor plan. Elevation maybe like 5 more sheets in. Oh, wait, no, stop. Yeah. There's going to be some civil, landscaping, stormwater management.
That's the elevation.
Another section. 2 more. There. Oh, no. They made it this way, so yeah, go back. There we go. Now let's try that. Yes, right. So those are elevations. So it's kind of a 4-sided building, because it's such a large site. We're not treating kind of front or back. Each orientation has a different purpose, and over the concept build out, there are some pedestrian walkways that are anticipated to occur on site. Those are going to be surrounding stormwater management, water features, where we're going to plan to collect water to detain it temporarily before it can make its way into city systems, to kind of turn those into an aesthetically pleasing feature, to turn this into a healthy medical walking environment for people who are going to be on site. But part of the issue is there really is no good way to get from Chef to the site. There is no true front door access, and so really what we've got is we're going to be presenting, this front facade that has a lot of glazing, but with the main focus being this kind of center spine that will be part of the full build-out concept. Kind of where the design intent is going.
I think you go up, we have a large site.
Further up, maybe.
So you're saying that the entry is more oriented towards Chef and Reed?
Vehicular
Corner,
entryway,
The
yeah.
vehicular
Correct.
entryway?
And then the entryway of so the building actually sits north-south for the most part with a slight slant to it with the street. Yeah, what you're looking at is the bottom darker line is the sidewalk that we're going to put in across the whole site, which again, in order to get to that sidewalk, you have to cross the road, then you have to get over that ditch and then come across. And we looked at a bunch of different ways to design this to be able to get ourselves to elevations for flood elevations and stuff of that nature. And what we felt was the best thing to do, rather than putting the building up on a pedestal, was to bring the area that the actual site of the building was, so that the vehicles are doing the majority of the movement onto the site, so that when you actually step out onto that driveway or into that parking lot, you're not going up multiple steps to get onto the site. We looked at a bunch of different developments throughout the city, one being the large development that's on Carrollton, where they have the Winn-Dixie in the rear and they have the Acme and all. And one of the things that we weren't very happy with was that it wasn't very pedestrian friendly because of the way it was right up against the road and you had to go up multiple steps. So what we were trying to do here was we were trying to make it as pedestrian friendly as we can, but we also were understanding the fact that Shepman Tour is not pedestrian friendly. And we don't want to even push people onto Shepman Tour. We would prefer to see people, if they're coming on buses, us bringing the buses onto the site. If they're coming by walkway, then being able to walk under the protection side of the street so that they're not directly up against the surface area of the road. So when we made that decision, we also looked at the fact that we wanted to present a good face to Shep Highway from an architectural design standpoint, but from a pedestrian standpoint, we wanted the center or the entrance of the building to be from that parking lot, because that's where people will be entering. And also, again, I apologize for not having other drawings of the future site stuff, but it was so future that I didn't want to impose something on the site that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do in the future. But our goal always was to have this be more of a campus feel, where once you were onto the site, this being the very center of the landmark of the property, that everything would move from the inside out versus coming off the street and just having one building. Because what we don't want to do is when we move to phase 2, phase 3 of new buildings, we don't want the buildings to just line up in a row on the street. We wanted this to have more of a complex feel. Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, there are drawings in there closer to the bottom where the future buildings are laid out. There's proposed future building, proposed future parking.
We have the set. Let us.
Well, I've got the art landscape.
And
So there's
Closer
this
to
is my
what's
permit
in
set.
the
This is the
element.
permit set.
Yeah, this is the
16,
Yeah, it's page 16.
page 16. While we're looking, can I just ask a quick
Yes,
question?
ma'am.
If the site is like 5 or 6 feet lower than the chef, all you're going to be seeing is that, not the entire building, you're just going to be seeing, for the most part, you're going to be catching the roof line and not really the face of the building
No.
so much.
We're
I'm
bringing the site up completely, up 3 to 4 feet to get it up to a percent where it's closer to the elevation of Chef Highway.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
So,
Thank you
yeah,
very
that
much.
might be mine. When we originally looked at it, we looked at leaving everything level and then just raising the building. And what we decided to do was to use almost like a bridge. The walkway and the driveway are going to be built up where they're level, and then we're bringing you up onto the site. So that whole impediment you see with the dark areas around, that whole area is going to be built up to a level where it's more level with Sheffield Highway. It's going to put it a good 3 to 4 feet above the restaurant.
Well, that's interesting and good. But then how does I'm sorry, what is the transition then when your walkway? Is it, are you filling in the swale?
No, the swale is not.
So it's
is
going
not
to be
full
like
by
a
the site.
railing
That's
sort
big
of entrance?
Yes, we're gonna cross over the swale. Yeah.
So you're gonna be coming,
So one of the things we looked at too when we were designing the site as a whole is that we didn't want a box store grocery store feeling where it was a building and then all this parking lot in there. So conceptually, when we started looking at where our buildings were going to be, what we're actually looking at is a series of walking paths, driveways, sidewalks, natural berms that people will actually be moving above the ground within the area. So we will only be building up in the adjacent areas to the building. That is the parking lot, the site, the whole.
right, we can go on to 16, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail it, I just,
No, this is 16. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at our first building that we looked at, and then there's a series of rectangular spaces that we're looking at for future buildings. Some of them are closer to Lurline Street, depending on the type of use. The remainder of them are in different locations, just based upon how we look at the parking and all that. The parking would actually be across the back of the lot. It's a little lighter, so it's harder to see here.
yeah. Yeah, that's why I was asking, 'cause I can see it here, I can't see it there.
Can we look at the elevation?
Do you all know what page the elevation is?
22.
22? And 23.
I want to say there's more.
So, the top one would be facing the existing restaurant.
No, the top one faces north on the plan. So up, the bottom one faces chef.
Yeah, so the lower one, the lower one would face Chef Highway. What you're seeing there is you're seeing the storefront glass system across the right side, which also would face the parking lot.
And I'm sorry, where does the walkway come in? To the building?
Along the left side of the bottom elevation.
Along the box?
Yeah, so that box is actually a canopy that comes out over the entrance to the other two spaces. So when we laid it out, we laid out the medical clinic to have its own entrance, which faces north, and then the two, we call them retail spaces, but our goal is to try to look at something medical. What that is that's actually a covered area, a vestibule, a covered area over the entryway.
I think you have it, so if you're looking at it from Chef, the parking lot's on the left.
Correct.
So, the glassy area,
Is facing east.
and so the glassy area does not face the parking lot.
It does not.
Well, neither of these elevations show the parking lot elevation. That's on the next
The
page.
parking lot's on the west. Both of these are.
No, I'm just saying which edge of this drawing faces.
The bottom elevation is the left edge of the parking lot, and the top elevation is the right edge.
Okay, so maybe look at the parking lot elevation then.
That's the parking lot elevation on the top. And then
So what you're looking at is on the right-hand side, you'll see the series of more glass with the covered area above it. That's the awning that I was speaking of, the entry vestibule awning. And then we have a series of windows to the left of that. Those are going to be windows that are going to be inside exam rooms, so they're smaller windows. Because what you're looking at, if we were cutting this down the middle to the right, if you look at the top drawing, to the right is going to be the two least face. To the left is going to be the doctor's office. And what you'll see to the far left is we actually have a covered walkway that's going to go to the entry point of the doctor's office. So that's the cover area. And then the lower drawing, what you're looking at is actually facing east, and that is where we are putting mechanical equipment and stuff of that nature. There is some plans in the future to potentially put a courtyard on that side that would then focus in on the buildings that would come in the future from that.
Wait, can we go back to the drawing above? I mean, I do think it's a little problematic that it doesn't have any kind of, any kind of relationship to the street on which it has its primary address in terms of, so it seems like
something could be brought around the Sheffman Tour Highway to indicate, visual presence of a clinic rather than just a, side elevation. Is it possible to, have your entry sort of wrap around to the Sheffman Tour facade so that it's got some presence on the street?
Entrance to medical clinics on the backside of the building.
Right. But that might not be the best. I mean, if it's facing Sheffman Tour Highway, I understand it's a very suburban context, but the idea behind the corridor, I believe, is to give it some presence on the street. Am I wrong, Haley?
I agree with you. I was interested in your concept talking about this as a campus, but in terms of building placement, how far it's set back.
We're
and
actually as
having
close to
a
Sheff as we're
as you
allowed to
can.
be. That's
We're-
the building placement is.
Right,
zoning,
and it's
so
not-
And actually, it's crazy because the way the property line works out there, this is actually the side of the property that gets us as close as
Yeah, it actually steps
because
around.
there's a bunch of work. I want to
Okay,
say
so
that
for
from the
setbacks?
edge of the street,
Yeah.
it's a good 40 or 50 feet to us because of the way we're set up. We're not as close to the street for some reason as other properties around us are. So just because of the way. So if you look, we're actually at pretty much the same location as the restaurant, which is also sitting at zero
We
property
can
line.
look at that a little bit further as we look at our review, but Eleanor's comment is, and Miguel's, is about having the building frontage facing Sheffman Shore. I think, so we're okay with you saying that the parking lot is to the left of the building and you want to direct people, and the use specifically is in the back half of the site.
Well, the tenant use,
The tenant use
we don't
for
know what the
that.
other two use.
And so you would have people coming from the parking lot into the building, but what Eleanor is requesting is to have some type of, front and side entry to the building, so you may have to look at like how the building's laid out, with those two uses and.
Well, it's actually 3 uses.
3 uses.
So that's the issue. We've got the medical building, which doesn't, it's exam rooms, so it kind of limits us on windows and stuff of that nature versus like a retail type space. But again, this is going to be a medical office building. It's going to be a pharmacy, or it's going to be a doctor's office. So it's not going to have a lot of windows to start with. That was one of the things that we actually took a lot of time on, was trying to figure out where we could actually place windows. And unfortunately, other than the lobby, that was one of the only spots that are from security reasons and all that.
Okay.
Could I ask a question? Would it be, if we were to spend a little bit more time potentially on designing some sort of entryway, maybe aside from the building, something that perhaps brought people onto the site better? It's kind of a silly analogy, but when you go onto a campus, there's usually an archway you go through that tells you you're going onto a campus. Because we haven't broached signage at this point. We're still trying to figure out that. Perhaps we could use some more visual markers for entryway. Because again, it's a highway. It's not a street. It's not a road. It's not a boulevard. It's a highway, and we literally pushed ourselves as close to the street as we could.
Okay. And I don't think it's so much, it's like the restaurant, you said you're set back, the equivalent of the restaurant, but the restaurant has a door facing Sheffman Tour Highway.
No, it's just not.
It orients itself.
Well, every other facility does on Sheffman Tour, like all the, if you go and look at the shopping centers.
Yeah, and adjacent to us on the left is an L-shaped traditional shopping center set behind 500 feet of parking. It is not very
The
appealing.
main elevation of the building needs to be perceived to be on Sheffman Tour. I think that's.
But there is no main elevation to this. So
Well,
it's really
then you
Well,
have
that's
to-
because you designed it that way.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that it needs to have that.
So maybe we need
How do we
to spend,
define main elevation?
so we need to spend more time designing this lower side
Yeah.
of the
So
building.
this is not a suburb, so you don't want your doors to face the parking lot that is at its side. You want it to be formally facing.
We do not.
They
You know
don't.
what?
We do
It's a
not.
campus.
Personally, they don't.
We
You
do
missed
not.
this part.
Yeah,
They're
conceptually, this is a
creating a
campus
campus
design.
where
This
they.
is just
Yeah,
the phase
the
one.
campus is another thing.
Right. Well, I mean,
So
at
the
this
restaurant
time,
actually operates in the exact same manner. I'll tell you one of the things too, we looked at when we did a lot of these, the nature of these buildings, they tend to be rectangles. It tends to work for us. My client's extremely concerned about security. We're taking a huge risk going out there and doing what he's trying to do in that area. So when we looked at it originally, when we looked at the initial design, the idea was to try to keep the sight lines through the property as narrow as possible. There was also some wind and sun
So
elevation.
the south elevation, what are those windows that you have? You have a door, you have your covered, whatever that is, the portico,
Yeah, the entryway.
the entryway, yeah, going to the parking lot. What are those 3 windows on the left and the 3 windows on the right?
On the top elevation, 3 windows on the left going to the lobby for the medical facility,
Okay.
and the 3 windows on the right are for one for each examiner.
Okay, so could that elevation just transfer to the front?
But that's
If
the,
you-
that's
if you
the north
start the
elevation,
program?
that's not the south elevation.
Well, the south elevation is attractive and it could serve as the main elevation if you just flip the programming.
So I'm gonna have to jump in and just say that it's 11:08, we have one more item on the agenda, we have the conference room until noon, so we need to save time for that next item. I think we would like to see you all come back, so if we start to make a motion, we would say to defer this, allow y'all to come back and show us this, more of the contextual campus plan that you're describing. But in general, we're saying we would like to see the front of the building read as on Chefman Shore. So that's my motion, and if anybody has
Is there
an
a clear
amendment,
definition of what exactly would?
we will be able to work with you. So this
Yeah.
is Ava, she's the CPC staff member.
We're really trying to design this forefront. Like we're not
We
trying to
got
have
you.
it back. Even the service yard or side of the building, we envision is.
Which is the architect envision. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are fundamental design issues, program, main elevation.
So we have a motion on the floor by city planning. Do we have a second?
Sure.
We have a second by Parks and Parkways. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. So we will work with you to come
Perfect.
back, and that's just our general comment is to look at that.
I want to figure out how we can work within some of the planning, because I think that there are a lot of good ideas. I just wanna make
Thank
sure
you,
that we-
David.
Thank you.
Nicole, can you bring in your group for the next item?
Yeah, I saw you had paid on this.
Okay, so if we can let the record reflect that Miguel Viteri is now present and Sarah King will be a voting member for city planning because Stephen needed to leave. Hi, Laura, welcome. Top golf. Who's going to be presenting?
They can have a seat here at the table.
Is anyone present as a member of the public? All right, we will now begin our last item, item number 6, consideration of design review docket 2423. This is a request for Top Golf, a new commercial outdoor amusement facility that is over 40,000 square feet in area. We're looking at this because the site is within a CCN, Convention Center Neighborhood Overlay District. Sarah King is the CPC staff member assigned to this case, and we have Laura Barth signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant. Sarah will give a brief overview, and then the applicant will have 10 minutes to present. Thank you very much.
Design review
Okay.
interior 2423 for Top Golf,
Do you mind?
a new commercial outdoor amusement facility. We're looking at this because the site is within a CCN Convention Center Neighborhood Overlay District, and the use exceeds 40,000 square feet. The site encompasses 2 city squares along Chappaqua Street. The proposal is for a 3-story structure with a ground floor retail and lobby area, 2-story bar and restaurant, event space, rooftop terrace, and outdoor patio. There's also a proposed parking lot containing 471 parking spaces, which would be located across Main Street. The remainder of the site includes a driving range with hitting bays. The perimeter of the site would include cell poles ranging from 90 to 170 feet. The applicant is requesting several waivers. The drawings show 3 signs, 2 wall signs on the front and a wall sign on the rear. The wall sign on the rear would require a variance because it's not facing a street. The signs on the front would require variances for excessive size. What we're looking at here is the placement of the front signs on the front-facing structure to direct vehicles to the site, and other signage that should be at the pedestrian scale for people walking by. The applicant is also requesting a waiver for 15.5 feet front yard setback and a variance for the use of EPIS material, which is prohibited in the district and shown as a facade element.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Y'all now have 10 minutes to present.
All right. So just real quick, I know on the applicant side, but if we could hand it off to Arco, or at least the representatives from Topgolf to present and stuff.
Yes, of course.
Sorry.
Anyone can speak during that 10 minutes.
I think we handed out just a handout just to kind of give you some visual perspective of the building that we are designing here. But as we kind of like went over in our summary overview, I just think sometimes a picture speaks 1,000 words. But you'll see on the first page here, just shows some exterior elevation drawings of our building here. As you said earlier, it is a 3-story venue. It composes of 34 hitting bays per floor. And I just like to explain it as each, when I say a bay, it's similar to a bowling alley lane, where you can have like 6 to 8 guests play, rent out a lane or a bay, so to speak, and play the game of Topgolf. So we will have, with the 3 floors, we'll have 102 hitting bays going across there. These drawings that you're looking through just kind of give a visual perspective of each of the elevations from different angles, or whether you're on the utility side. The building is very unique in regards to how you would typically see a building being proposed. Our building is curved. Obviously, a lot of buildings are square or rectangular in nature. There is a reason for that. We try to curve our building to optimize the plane for our guests, regardless of where they are on what we call the T-line facing the outfield. It focuses everyone's attention and direction of hitting the ball toward the center of the field, and also reduces the size that we need for our outfield, and also direct the lights more inward to the field itself. And if we were to have it more box or linear in nature, then the people on the outer bay would obviously be right in line with the net from the exterior of the field. So if you were to have a straight shot, if you will, it's going to hit the net pretty much immediately. So by having that curvature in nature, we focus all our attention to the middle of the target to improve the gameplay regardless of where you are in the building. As you can see on the site plan above here, the site is very uniquely shaped. And so it comprises of the 2 lots here. So we have our building set back on lot 1, and we purposely have put a drop-off drive lane in front of the building to promote dropping off of guests, and also allows us to have ADA accessible parking in the front of the building for our guests that might have disabilities from a mobility perspective. Having that drop-off also allows us to get traffic off of U-turf, so that we can have so we don't have to worry about cars stacking into the road and causing any traffic issues. So that's why we had it set in such a way to allow that to happen. The building kind of also set just due to some existing utility lines that we had running in the area. So it's kind of like pretty much landlocked the building, so to speak, in that location. We do have a very wide sidewalk at the bottom of the site plan that you see here along Chapatulas, just to have safety for our pedestrians getting from the parking lot to the venue itself. And we do plan to have a commuter, basically golf cart, so to speak, going back and forth for two things: to help our guests get from the parking lot to the front of the building, but also to act like security as well, so we can keep an eye on our guests as they go from the venue back to their tables. It's just like an overall view of Topgolf. I kind of want to see if you guys have any specific questions I can try to answer for you in regards to any concerns or design questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll start by just going over some concerns that we had. One was that the submitted plans that were provided to us didn't quite show the edge conditions of how, and this site plan here shows more than we had previously seen of your curvilinear path. And if you could talk more about the width of the path that allows for carts and for people. But we were specifically concerned about the context of being along Chapatula Street and what the experience would be like next to these tall poles and netting. So we had discussed the possibility of building up that height by introducing a low wall and maybe some different types of buffering so that it lessens the visual impact. So that's one of our concerns is just along, I guess that's Malcolm Main Street and Chapatula Street, what would be that condition? And then on the other side, so you have your interior property line. On the other side of that shared interior property line is the Soleil Apartments, and so that's a large multifamily development that you're sharing a square with, and we want to know how we can mitigate impacts on that residential use, as well as across from U-Turk Street, where the building fronts on, you also have your multifamily housing there. So those are just, so we're worried about the edge conditions. And then in terms of materialities for the, well, we'll just talk about the proposed structure. The footprint of it, as you mentioned, the curvilinear shape of the building is atypical for the area. The facade treatments are not really speaking to the surrounding development. So it may be that we ask you to come back and provide some more contextual drawings to show how this site fits within the surrounding area. And we would want you to look at your building elevations and show it in context with the nearby area. So in terms of like facade treatment, there's a lot of angular shapes, and we were thinking that the overall design intent for this district was to have more of a box pattern within a grid-like pattern on the structures. And then also, speaking of when you provide those elevations, I'm wondering if you can consider building materials that are more complementary to the area. You may need EFIS for certain parts of the structure, but for the main facade, we would like to see you introduce materials that are more typical for the area. Lighting, that's another concern of ours. So we have been using the term the site would be glowing from afar, so we want to consider that impact. You're coming into a neighborhood. This is a large outdoor amusement facility, but please understand the context. When you come back, show the views to the site from the surrounding areas, the sight lines, what we would be seeing. So from what we're able to understand, 3 stories up would be how far would be illuminated. And so we just want to kind of understand how we can mitigate that in the surrounding context. As far as signage, well, before we move on from lighting, so there's the illumination of the site from far away, but also we discussed the neon lighting, the LED strip lighting along the building, That does not seem to be typical for the area, and we would hope that you can make modifications to that to remove the LED strip lighting. I'll just briefly touch upon the signage. We, as a city, we like to think of neighborhood scale, pedestrian scale. We're trying to promote walkability, so signage is a big thing for that. Our wall signage is supposed to identify the building from the furthest point where the vehicle is driving up to the site. And then we want all other signage to kind of read at a pedestrian scale. So I understand that one of the signs would be located on the back of the building, and you would have to seek a variance for that because it doesn't technically face a street. So let's just kind of discuss signage. And then as far as the parking area to the site, we would just like you to talk about how you design the parking lot itself, because we have we want to discourage the development of surface parking lots in general, but if you are going to develop them, let's see ways that you can do it by using sustainable materials and how you apply the landscaping. And within the city, we're getting a bigger focus on using crime prevention through environmental design strategies to make parking lots safer. So we ask that you look at just lighting and just further look at that parking lot area. So I'll just drop those as some comments, but I know that we have a lot of committee discussion on this. It's 11:24 and we have the conference room booked until noon. So I just want to open it up for others to comment.
I have a question for staff first. What is the setback? Is there a need for a setback on this?
Okay, so what they're talking about, the setback is along UTURP Street. The CCN district has specific bulk and yard regulations, so it was written in that this particular square would have a 15-foot setback.
It's a required setback. And there's a waiver request for that to be.
Okay, so
I
maybe
think that in the package, the waiver, there was a page with a waiver.
so if the applicant can talk about the utility easements and the determination of that setback, we would appreciate
So
that.
I do want to just take that piece on that part, on the setback. I'm sorry, I can talk about the utility services that helps in that setback question, because I think the actual setback condition is actually 5 feet, is what's required along U-turn, and it's being requested to be a deeper setback, primarily because the building's massing is shifting back within the site due to the energy overhead transmission line servitude along Chapel Tulane. It's a 50-foot servitude requirement. So let's say if that wasn't there, the building could be pulled more proud to U-turn Street, but in the case of that utility easement, it does force the physical footprint of the building further back within the site.
So, okay, the 50-foot, can you repeat what you said about the 50-foot? And is that, can you show the photo of the?
Actually, if you leave it up there real quick, I'll point it real quick. That's actually a big part of their path. That 50-foot service
Oh, I see.
actually aligns with the drive path.
Okay.
They have proposed.
My second question is the street closure, Haley, is that a request? Or
Okay.
has it been?
It's a separate app, so there's a two-part to this piece. Top Golf is applying for the permit for their building. I'm on the master developer landlord side, so Urban District Neighborhood Investors is applying for the re-subdivision application, separate and apart from this.
If that's in progress?
Yes, we had a public meeting to address part of it. We actually met with law department and real estate Friday, just to have some of the initial work through some initial concepts dealing with the Melford Street proposed closure and or transaction, because it's going to require for us to give up a portion of our lot that's on the north side of Melford in order to make the turning knuckle that's proposed on this plan.
And you're certain that you need to have that closure in order to move with the development?
Correct.
I see your comment because the cul-de-sac, is that a proposed cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
And that's removing the red light pattern of the street system, and we like to have are y'all planning to address that? Are people gonna be able, so they can't drive it, vehicles won't be able to
It kind of
go
alters
through,
permanently.
but what about pedestrians at least? Is there a path that allows them to go through?
Yes, so that's actually the big part of the continued path along Chapatulas is to allow pedestrian connectivity from Melpomene to Chapatulas and follow that path under the utility poles to the proposed traffic controls down the road that would be installed at U-Turf and Chapatulas, connecting it across the building district development.
So that cul-de-sac might be a separate conversation, than this, top off.
Yeah. Well,
But it's through the site, so we do have to consider how the pedestrians it would be still open.
Well, I guess my questions are, I mean, I see opportunities and I wanted to ask, but I wanted to ascertain what these two other issues, what was happening there. Do you want to start the conversation or?
Well, sure. I guess the first thing I'd like to say is I appreciate all of Haley's input and it touched on a lot of my concerns. I guess what I'm feeling is like, first of all, I appreciate the investment in New Orleans. It's a big facility and we welcome it and don't want to cause any impediment to it whatsoever. And I just feel like I understand that the facade is facing U-Turf Street because of the way, Topgolf is organized, but I am feeling like I wish the building wrapped around this corner of it at Chapatulas,
It's like
so that it had some presence
huge missed opportunity.
on the street, because this is a very, I understand you got the setback because of the utilities, but if the building could wrap around a little bit, have a corner element at this hinge to sort of announce it, because you're losing a lot by facing it towards the side of the Soleil and this parking garage.
And the scale of the overall is just not appropriate for that side street. I mean,
Right.
you're like missing, you have full visibility from Chapatulas.
And I can understand, like, this is at the center of those wings, so that from a, programmatic standpoint, it makes sense for them, for it to be here. And so maybe this main, area stays there, but another opportunity here is taken to provide, massing at the corner that welcomes and orients people to the facility, maybe also
I was
provides
hoping
the
maybe
outdoor
this mass
dining.
could become skinnier so the building could shift back and they wouldn't have to, close the street. I mean, it just seems like a lot of effort. If you maybe address
They're not closing U-Turn.
But they're closing the
Oh,
other street.
that street there,
Yeah.
so they're coming forward and
if
not
they could,
closing that off.
kind
So
of
they're
build up the
bringing
corner,
pedestrians
could they
onto the
shift
side.
over a little bit
Right.
and not have to close the
I
street?
imagine there are probably things that are driving them to do what they're doing that I don't know about, but I just say in general, I would love for it. So my main thing is, having a corner announcement on Chapatulas, which is a major thoroughfare, and also I'm concerned about, the lighting spillover at night, and how, all this parking lighting and the Topgolf lighting is going to be, impacting the neighborhood. I'm also concerned, obviously, ethos is a problematic material. It does not hold up in hurricanes. It flies all over the place and is not suitable for designing in this neighborhood or in the city, in my opinion.
So
And then-
possibly a masonry facade along the front?
I mean, I don't know,
It could be metal panel, I mean,
metal panels,
The-
stucco, just not
the
ethos.
the aesthetic of your business is kind of, I looked at many of your facilities, you do have some variation. You do have stone elements in some of your, one especially in one in Texas. But, so the scale of it on U-Turf makes more sense on Chapatulas, so some of your massing elements could make a little bit more sense. But the materiality being a little bit more industrial also is more of a, you kind of have a moment when the facility is having a conversation with the convention center. So maybe take your cues from there, but then you're also part of this residential. So you have these two competing scale influences, but you also have this corner condition that you're not taking advantage of. And then you have this trajectory where you're bringing in people from the parking lot, which could be this incredible pedestrian experience where you're activating Chapatulas and you're creating an excitement on the vehicular but also pedestrian, and your facility actually fits for people from the convention center to come and neighborhood people, and it starts making a little bit more sense. I see a lot of potential that you're maybe not quite focusing on that could make this really amazing.
And then I'll just finish.
Sorry.
I think the outdoor, and I think it doesn't meet the CZO, but the exterior lighting, LED lighting, I don't think that that's appropriate in this. Maybe in a discrete area at a corner, that could be part of a design element. But the way, this isn't the side of a freeway like you would have between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. This is in the middle of the city, so it needs to be addressed sensitively. That's the my point. And I agree with everything Miguel said.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if our suggestions are even possible programmatically, so that's our question to you. Is that possible, what we're suggesting?
Well, I'll start. I kind of made a list of all the issues here. Going back to the comments on pedestrian pathway, I guess, between the parking lot and the building itself. That is a 15-foot wide pedestrian sidewalk that we proactively made fairly wide for the reason of encouraging pedestrians to go maybe also offset it from Chopper Chewers and put them on the back of the curb just to.
Give you a
I got small kids and stuff.
Right.
If I'm going, I don't want them running down the sidewalk like Chopper Chewers. That's right along the back curb. So we purposely offset it toward the venue itself or toward the outfield that we call it and away from the road just to encourage pedestrian friendly safety. And then made it extra wide so that we do have block cars, etc. going back and forth. There's still ample 10 foot of space for pedestrians to go both ways. Not to say that they can't just ride on the grass next to it, but we did purposely make it wide for that particular reason to encourage pedestrian walk-by traffic from the convention center and also the parking lot area.
And one other thing, Scott, on that one, I think that's important to still include is that a portion of the stormwater function, I believe, is currently proposed inside of some of that footprint. So it's not just the walk path. They are looking at the concept of putting some form of bioswales, which helps to create some landscape buffer, and that's part of that pedestrian activation along that piece. That ties into also what we had planned through the text amendment process for River District, where we do have some wider setback conditions, which becomes part of that extended pedestrian plaza along Convention Center Boulevard. So there are design and planning cues that are copied to this site for the Chapel Tools activation for that piece.
Say the last part again. I'm sorry, the last part.
So within River, and it's probably, you're not getting the benefit of seeing some of the River District planning component that helps to feed some of this dialogue in this presentation. On Convention Center Boulevard, we actually created a deeper building setback to continue the linear park from the Convention Center all the way to Market Street. So we're trying to promote actually deeper setback conditions in that case to promote more pedestrian connectivity. And that's a little bit what you are seeing here and how that continues and connects to U-Turf and Shopping.
So the strategy on Convention Center Boulevard with, how to create a pedestrian area that has the incorporation of stormwater management and landscaping and, hangout area seating, that's something that could inform that location, but you're not currently showing it yet. Okay.
And I guess that was part of my question. Your actual sidewalk isn't shown. So you're not bringing people onto the site, right? Because this is all within your property line.
Correct.
So you're not bringing pedestrians into the site. Is that correct? You are continuing a sidewalk.
Well, right now,
along the side.
I don't think there's a sidewalk there now. We are.
Usually there's a requirement that you have a
There's
sidewalk.
There's one now.
Yeah, and so so this is more of because are you inviting pedestrians into the site, into private property that are not planning to be using the site?
Yeah, they can utilize that
Well,
sidewalk.
I don't see your connections at any juncture except at the beginning and at the end. So there's
I
not,
can point to it if you like me to. So the idea was, so there's some existing sidewalks right here along Chavatulas. They fade out about right here, and then there's no sidewalk on this side. So the idea is to create some sidewalk here on the right of way, bring it up into our site, and from there they can use this meandering.
usually that's a liability
sidewalk.
issue. Is that something you're sure
And
you
then
want to
access.
do?
That's something we have been planned throughout the entire master plan, for our entire master plan throughout River District. We're actually encouraging, in a part of our re-subdivision application, introducing pedestrian sidewalks through the development onto private property.
Or the main sidewalk, so you wouldn't have a main sidewalk.
Correct. You would not have a sidewalk that would theoretically sit within the city's right of way. We would be maintaining it on the private property.
So the liability is assumed by the private property owner.
Correct.
Okay. That was just unusual. I'm not.
We thought it was a good thing to do just to get it off of Chavatulas.
I have no objection. What I'm saying,
It's
if I owned the property, it would be a question.
Certainly saves a lot of money.
Huh?
It certainly saves a lot of money not to have to build a public sidewalk.
Yes, but then then I would see you having multiple entries from that side, and I don't, one of the things that we talked about was the lighting and the glowing dome, and I don't see any proposed landscaping here that could conceivably aid you in reducing some of that very stark facade that we're seeing, that would be seen on Chavatulas. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
On Chavatulas.
Yeah, do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And the other thing that we found is that really, so that's, I guess my same thing with the circular drive there, that's on your property, or that's partially the street?
Partial, and that's a part.
So that would be a lease situation, and then y'all would maintain it?
So we're actually dealing with a potential swap for public to private land, because it does require to give up a portion of, that's what I was mentioning earlier, we have a parcel north of Melpomene Street. We would have to transfer that to the city for the cul-de-sac.
For just the cul-de-sac, or for the entire length of the street?
Just for a portion of the cul-de-sac, because that is Melpomene portion.
So you're gonna bring people in, but you can go onto private property in order to turn around. If I'm not going there.
It becomes part of the public right of way. That's a part of what we're dealing with the resub and the swap for land amendments. There's Melpomene Street continues down. Melpomene Street currently continues down right here.
And you would expect for it to continue. Yeah.
So what we're doing is there's a proposal on the table for us to acquire this portion of the right of way. We would contribute back this portion of this private property on this end back to the public right of way. There's also some existing sewer and water board servitude easements that also exist on the private property side of the equation. So we're trying to work through those components to return those elements back to the public right of way. It's not, we don't really have it focused in this piece because this application was purely more about the top off portion, but you're going to see a lot more of that coming back.
Well, yeah, but it's all part and parcel.
Yeah. No, I'm not separating. Just
okay.
Explaining it's not in this package, but you would see that more from my side as opposed to Scott's application.
The west boundary between the building that's adjacent, what is that space? What is this space here?
That would be, what's the name of that parking complex?
Valerie. Is there access
I think
here?
it's about
No. What is happening
No,
here?
down that entire side.
You don't want anybody there?
No, we would have a aluminum black fence type going down that side, probably also along the Chavatulas side as well, and then we could add landscaping on that side. You need to have it on the street side regardless, unless I'm wrong,
illy on that, so you also need to have landscaping on the Chapatoulas side, not just on your property, but you'll need street trees on Chapatoulas and all the way around. It was just a thought that depending on how you're doing it, it can help to buffer some of your look that you're trying of the glowing, I don't know what we're calling it, it's not an orb, glowing rectangle.
Going into the lighting, so to speak, I think and we get that question a lot. If you look at some of the older venues, they would have like the bug eye lights on top of the roof that would kind of like almost like a football stadium and shine down. We definitely got away with that. Those like the metal halide lights that we used.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a while. But now we do the LED lights that are actually mounted inside the building itself. So on the third floor and the second floor ceiling line inside the building, the lights are mounted. That way it helps on the visibility. You don't have like these giant football lights sitting on top of the building shining down. I mean, they are pointed to the outfield, but we're able to calibrate and angle them so that when you get to the outer limits of the outfield, so for example, those two fence lines that we're talking about, we have our lighting guy come out. He does the foot candle calibrations and goes back up on the lift and dials them all down, and dims them down and angles them, et cetera, so that when you get to the property line, it dims down basically now. But as far as the parking lot is concerned, I mean, we just do whatever the code requires illumination is for the parking. But I mean, you probably have 15-foot parking lot, typical lights that you have in an everyday parking lot. We have those with, depending on how many fixtures, 4 or 2, depending on what nutrition your guy said is needed to eliminate the parking.
And you're doing extra parking more than you need. Did I hear that at the beginning? Are you doing more than what is required for you?
I think the requirement is in
the text
we have less than we're allowed.
Yeah, less than you're allowed.
Okay. When we did the text amendment overlay for the entire district, we're trying to apply it as more of an aggregate system, so there is an.
Oh, you're allowed 896 spaces.
Correct. Yeah, so we're well below the 150 threshold, the 150% requirement threshold.
I mean, the parking lot is not that exciting, but yeah, I think there's I know it's parking lot, but we're creating this like massive parking. Obviously, that's landscaping plan is missing. It would help to kind of understand a little bit better how these areas are kind of softened a little bit.
What about the idea of shifting the massing? Is that a possibility?
Shifting the what?
The massing of the building towards Chapatoulas?
The actual footprint itself?
Yeah.
That's the servitude easement that stops it.
I don't think that's possible. I mean, you got that easement right
It
there.
stops it up to this
50-foot easement for the transmission lines. So we are basically right up on that, so we can't shift it into that easement.
Where is it?
You can't build it here.
This entire footprint straight this
Oh.
way. It's a 50-foot. Yeah, it's a 50-foot setback. Yeah.
And then we do have an outdoor patio space here on the bottom right corner, I guess in the southeast corner of Chapatoulas and U-turn. That would be the last one.
So there's the 50-foot setback line that's within its condition.
Which is that it right there?
That's exactly which dotted line it is. I think there's also a fall line that they have to adhere to with Intergy in terms of with the overhead fence poles. So there's a couple things that have to.
This shift. So, given that, could this larger portion shift to this?
The outdoor patio area is this area here,
Swap
but you
it.
can't.
Can you swap it to the other side? Just swap it.
Right. I
Something
understand that that's
yellow.
there, I'm asking, can that switch?
Point blank, no. Just because of that's like this big box is really the shell of the building where we have the kitchen, bars, back of house areas and things of that nature. And we have a lot of studies that you only allow certain linear footages of from there to the end for IT reasons and technology.
And your loading zone is right there too, that was another thing that I kind of have concern with, just because it's so like there.
So basically, it has to be what it has been presented as, and there's no real review
Pretty
happening.
blocked. It's pretty blocked. I mean, we went over this easements, the lot configuration, and some of the utility lines, such as the box culvert going through by Melvany, and then the transmission line on the east side is kind of it's pretty locked in.
I mean, do you see my point about having some kind of having the visibility from Chapatulas and maybe having some kind of activation happen on the pedestrian level?
So I think that's what's being missed in terms of what he's talking about for the patio component. There is an outdoor space that's not just about going at it, hit golf balls. They do have an outdoor experience component that's more like yard games and things of that nature that pulls that activation closer to that corner.
Sorry, yard games?
Yeah.
Games. Oh, lady.
You should be able to see it on the third.
I mean, you have renderings of it, but
Yeah,
then it
the
cuts off the
renderings are
corner
kinda-
in every rendering, so you can't see
This-
what it looks like from Chapatulas.
We're playing ground level. This is the block we're talking about. This is the main entrance coming in the front. But this entire area out here is, as Todd was saying, like we have an outdoor turf area that's conducive for yard games, cornhole, and things of that nature. Picnic tables and umbrellas. I encourage people like outdoor patio socialization.
We should have shared this one first. So the idea is that all of the guests' entrance and energy is all here. We have the outdoor patio on the first floor, second floor, and there's a third floor, and then this is the main entrance. And then specifically all of the operations is set back over here, so it is away from all of the guest experience. So that there is a method to it.
I mean, there is a transparency to it that's a little bit interesting, but I just wish it could engage more I guess the parking is kind of blocking it for me. You know, the parking where it is, it's just, I'm wanting to look at how the pedestrian, this looks so suburban, it really does. It looks like it could be anywhere, and you know why, because this is a facility that's better served to be in a space where you don't really have to, adjust work around existing density.
And to that question, if I could just ask one question. Have you, do you have any other examples of Topgolfs in locations similar to this, where you're so close to?
An urban.
In urban,
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like in such close proximity to multifamily.
Baltimore's a good example. It's right next to the Baltimore Ravens Stadium, the Orioles Stadium. It's right off of the river there.
Yeah,
St. Louis is probably also a really good one, but it's not quite open yet. We're a couple months away from finishing that one. That one's this exact like to a T exact building in downtown St. Louis.
Well, you're trying to fit a prototype in there without really adjusting it to what you want in the city.
right, I mean, that's kind of the problem with it, it's the exact same.
It seems that, just from your description, that the Baltimore one is more related to the equivalent of our Superdome or something like that, rather than a residential. You said Ravens. It's rather than the mix of residential that we have, and bridging that.
I don't think Baltimore is different because of its location. Like the shape of the building and the shape of the outfield, all of that is similar.
Right.
No, I thought what he was asking for is an example of where it is more related in this more suburban, not suburban, but more urban setting. But by urban, we didn't mean a stadium setting.
So I think there's so again it
So,
goes back to
okay, sorry, go ahead.
But no, actually to kind of help answer that question, again, it does kind of come back and looking at it in a greater context on the River District side. There's a bigger part of what we're still planning on the opposite side of Chapatulas, which is not just 100% residential. It is more mixed use on that side of Chop. There is conversations about the potential soccer stadium being located directly across the street from here, as well as the parking garage, and the current proposal for the Louisiana Music Museum is actually across the street from here. So it's not just 100% residential and existing context.
Right,
Yeah.
and I understand proposals Lord only knows this, Top Golf, I think, was proposed at 3 times 50 Union Building. So a lot of things get proposed. Rather than.
Can I just attention to the time? It's 11:52. We have about 8 minutes. I think we can start using that time to form our motion.
Actually, that's.
So is there anyone who would like to start the motion, and then we can add to it as we go through it, and we can take it by each area of concern that we have?
One quick question before a motion can get started is, do you think the Tchoupitoulas, this pedestrian could be developed with more programming elements? I mean, is that what you're thinking? I mean, I think Tika brought up the issue that you're bringing people into private property, and I know you have security issues that you need to assess, but can the look of it be a little bit more complex and maybe a little bit more?
I think some, just being quite honest, just being through this process before, and where I think I'm moving the conversation goes as a result of the motion, it's just allowing more time between now and potentially the next meeting to allow us to have just a little bit more interface and process what we said here, to kind of help influence that conversation. From a general plan standpoint, there's one metric of what Topgolf is required to provide. There's the stuff that we still have to coordinate with them as the landlord, for the lack of for clarity in terms of organizational goals. There's still a community art piece that's probably going to come down the road, but I still have to work through that component on the river district side of the conversation to see how elements can be introduced along Tchoupitoulas.
So what I was going to suggest was that curvilinear path. I think that kind of is different than what you see on the other side of the expressway. That's very linear, and I don't know what the overall master plan is outside of this scope. I'm doubting it continues this curvilinear pattern, and I would like to see the streetscape kind of be continuous along the corridor. I would like to encourage you to have dining areas within there. So you're saying you're going to have a cart path. So if you can have more like outdoor dining along that edge and have the carts bring out drinks, bring out food, and have it. So as I would be walking down Tchoupitoulas, I would be kind of engaged with the site in the seating area. I could sit down, I can order a drink, I can look into the site, and I would like to just explore that Tchoupitoulas edge condition and think about the pavement being more linear and connecting in with the surrounding streetscapes. But so I'm thinking that I'll start the motion and I'll say for deferral until the next meeting or however long y'all need to make the design changes. And we'll start on the building footprint. And we will say that we would like to emphasize the Tchoupitoulas Street more. If possible, can you make the footprint more rectangular? I know you have your limitations of the back side of the building needing to angle in towards your programmatic piece, but just kind of look at the contextual. We would like to see more of a grid-like thing, and with windows, the angular features on this building, if you can see if you can make them more grid-like and match with the intended design intent for the district. And so for facade material treatments for the front of, so moving from the footprint and now looking at the elevation, facade treatments, we would like to see you consider a different material. We spoke about stucco or just a different material than the EFIS. If you need EFIS on certain parts of the site for your programming, but your primary elevation, we would like to see you consider different materials. Does anybody have any amendments to the footprint and the elevations? As far as lighting, please come back and show us some vantage points so that we can start to understand. And when you show us the vantage points, please show us what you're doing to kind of mitigate that and understand the context of who is seeing it and from where. We would like for you to bring back additional details about the pole, how it's mounted to the ground, what other details are being incorporated into it to make it nicer as you're walking along. Adding in another proviso for the sidewalk experience along Chapatulas, can you make the pattern fit within the more linear geometry of the surrounding sites? The parking area from the cul-de-sac to Chapatula Street where you're making the pedestrian connection, can you show details of that, further details? The parking lot, it would be great if you incorporated more stormwater management, some native plants, just really consider that.
We are having like pervious pavement.
Okay.
And everything like that.
Show it, yeah, show it to us, show how it works in with the native landscaping and stuff. And then I'll just try to wrap up here if there's any other points y'all want to add, but,
We did put some perspective renderings together just from different angles.
did I get that?
No, yeah, we did this one. Yeah, I would like to.
Oh, and remove the neon lighting, or at least minimize it.
Is the neon lighting, is it an appearance issue, or is it like a light pollution?
It's atypical for the area. A lot of our districts prohibit neon lighting. So it's just not, it's not contextual.
Yeah.
Try to start to, try to start to see this site as more tailored. So when you come back, show us drawings and see how the elevation, just like the shapes of the windows, see how it's in play with the nearby surrounding. So we would like to see this without stopping it, like Eleanor said. We understand y'all have your fixed points that you have to work within, but it would be great if we could see this more contextual.
Good. Can I ask a question on specifically?
Well, I'm in the middle of maybe a motion.
Oh,
Do
sorry,
we have any modifications to that or additions?
That's pretty thorough.
I just want to say, DPW, I didn't really get a chance to comment. We're out of time, so I'm not going to bring it up here, but we do have a lot of comments.
If someone comes in for the conference room, we'll have to leave, but other than that, it's 12. But
I got EWG. Just real quick, I'm seeing the sidewalk conditions on Annunciation and Melpomene. We want to match the sidewalk conditions that are on those streets. The property line on Annunciation needs to be brought back to the normal property line on Annunciation. It's not at the curb. And that may be true for Daly as well. And then the path connect to the crosswalks at Henderson. However you want to do that sidewalk needs to connect. Those are the big things I have. And the rest can wait till the next review.
okay, so we have a motion for deferral subject to the suggested modifications. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Capital Projects. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. So this is Sarah King. She's the CPC staff member. She'll be happy to work with you. And Stephen just joined. So we're the CPC land use side, and we'll be happy to help y'all make those changes.
Okay, so as far as like updates to drawings for next time, coordinate with you, you circulate it internally and say, hey, this is what we were envisioning, type of thing.
We'll jump on it. It's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. This is exciting.
Yeah.
So that's the end of that.
We could talk about it more, but you guys gotta go.
Do we have EWG right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here.
Here. Thank heavens. Thought it was a strange timing, but yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.